case scenario. Chad's going to lead us, and I'm going to chime in. What I thought we'd do is, I know people have already started asking me about my deal, and so I thought I'd go off script. It's not in the syllabus, but I thought we'd talk about just careers and give some insights into why I did what I did. And again, none of us have all the answers, but I feel really fortunate to have had this happen, and it wasn't anything I was expecting. But I thought we'd talk about it. So, everybody good with that, going off script? All right. Because I know just enough to be dangerous about digital. You know, a lot of you are going to know more. So I ran into Joey at the grocery store. What, like last weekend?
Yep.
And what did you say? Remember? Yeah. So it was like, how prophetic was it that you had this slide up on the screen, and it wasn't like a plant or anything. It's just the reality of, you know, chief marketing officers. And you know, we've talked about the idea that you know, if you go back to the 60s and Mad Men, you know, marketing people were creatives, right? Like, you know, they made cool television ads and they won clients, and then they became chief marketing officers out of an agency environment. And then, you know, technology evolved and the internet evolved, and those creatives got crushed because they didn't understand technology the way they needed to, and they didn't understand data the way they needed to, and they didn't understand analytics, they didn't understand finance, they got crushed. And the ones that survive and the ones that thrive are the ones that had right brain and left brain, right? So that was the prophetic slide. I think 2015, 2016, the labor market started getting tight because the economy was good. I haven't seen the latest data, but here's a cone of silence. So I struggled with this topic because some of you, your employers have paid for you to be here, and the last thing I want to do is be disloyal to them. You know, they didn't send you here to get educated about how to find another job. So I want to be respectful of that, right? But I also want to tell you, like, important things about. There she is. Amy coming in. Perfect timing. I also want to tell you kind of the lay of the land. And raise your hands if you've gotten a recruiter call before. I'm sure you have. Everybody? Yeah, pretty much. Anybody had a recruiter call from one of these firms? No. All right. Yes. No. Maybe. All right. So you know that you've got the big four accounting firms. These are the big four recruiting firms. These are global firms that when Coca-Cola's looking for a chief marketing officer, they're working with one of these folks. When Procter & Gamble, if they're going outside the firm, even if they're not going outside the firm, they're calling one of these firms. These are the firms that recruit the highest profile, highest paid, highest risk CMO roles. Well, all roles. They recruit CEOs, they recruit members of boards of directors, and so you know, as you look ahead to, you know, your ultimate career, you want to be in their database is the bottom line. You want to be linked to them on LinkedIn. And I've spoken with someone, at least one person in all these firms. I'll tell a quick story. When I was in Boston, I was getting a recruiter called me, and raise your hands if you return the calls when they call you. Yeah, most everybody. Yeah, sometimes maybe. I got a recruiter call in Boston when I was at Royal Bank of Scotland, and I took the call or returned the call, and they said, "We're looking for someone who does this and this." And I said, "Well, you know, I'm not interested, but you should meet so and so." So my point is, when the recruiters call, particularly from one of these firms, I always return the call, and I always point them in the direction of people that I think might be a good match for them. But I never point them to anybody in my own company, because that would be disloyal, right? Mm-hmm. So, recruiter calls me 2005. I point her in the right direction, give her some intros, tell them, say, call her, tell her I said, mention my name, and good luck. Recruiter calls again 6 months later. Recruiter calls again 8 months later. Recruiter calls again 3 months later. Over a 5-year period, she calls me a number of times. Why? Why? Because I'm helping her do her job, right? I'm like, listen, I'm going to risk my reputation. I'm going to say you should talk to this person, and hopefully it makes you money, right? So 5 years later, she calls me on a Friday afternoon, about 4 o'clock, and I said, here's the job, and I said, let me think about it, and I'll think about some good people for you to talk to, and I'll give you a call back on Monday. Over the weekend, I think to myself, oh my God, I think I'm interested in that job. It was a big EVA. So I called the recruiter back and I said, I was thinking about it over the weekend about who the best candidate would be for you, and I think it's me. And lo and behold, I end up here. So it took 5 years, right, of building the relationship, and it paid off for me personally. Long story short, I've already blown that part. All right, so Corn Ferry calls me in November. And I'm going to be really personal here because I'm probably 10, maybe sometimes in some cases 20 years ahead of you all, and you've got the same path. You're going to be on the same path I'm on, and so if you can learn something from my experience, well, that's why we're all here to learn from each other, right? So I got a call from Corn Ferry in November, and they said, hey, we've got this role, and we think you'd be a good match. And I said, send me the job. I always ask for the job spec because I always like to see them, maybe compare it with my own. And I'm a geek, like I probably have 40 job descriptions on my hard drive of chief marketing officer roles. So a recruiter calls and says, we think you're a good match for this. And I said, actually, this is exactly what I've been doing for 4 years. I'm a very good match. Tell me more. And they said, well, here's the deal. It's private equity owned. They're looking for a marketing leader to report directly to chief executive. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll have the conversation, which is not something I normally do. But it was private equity owned, and the private equity firm has a strong track record of taking companies public. And there was an equity stake involved. And so, again, cone of silence, not to leave this room. I'm trusting you. I think Haley already knows this. So at AFC, I didn't have an equity stake. And at this point in my career, the opportunity to create wealth is tied up often in equity. So, that ship doesn't come around that often. And so I said, okay, I'll have a conversation. And I realized I was a good match, and so on and so forth. And they said, okay, well, this is what it pays, and we need you to relocate to the DC area. I said, okay, well, let me talk to my wife about that and do some research. So I did some research. Cost of living is about 50 to 60% higher in DC. And so Kurt calls back and I said, listen, this isn't going to work. Salary's not anywhere where it needs to be for me to make the move because of the cost of living. They're like, well, hang on, let me check. So I called back and said, well, we'll raise you 50 to 60%. I said, okay, and we'll give you equity, okay? And he said, but we need you to hard relocate. And I said, let me talk to my wife. So I talked to my wife. Of course, I knew the answer. Like, that's not happening. So I called them back. I said, listen, I really appreciate you thinking of me, and I can't do this, but let me think about who might be a good match for you, and I'll point them in your direction. And she's like, oh, well, sorry, it's a requirement. And I said, okay, well, let me think about who's a good match, and I'll let you know. Okay, click. Calls me back a couple days later. CEO wants to talk to you. I'm like, that's fine. He's going to put the hard sell on me, right? Like, Rockville's beautiful and whatever. And on the phone, and he's like, hey. He's like, listen, I think you can do this job maybe up here 2 days a week, the rest of the time remotely. What do you think? And I'm like, yeah, I think I can do that. So long story short is that was the agreement, and I didn't even know that I didn't do that. The reality is there aren't that many people that are actually all in the same location, and so my point is it's taken me a long time to get to this spot, but it is a really exciting company, and it is doing exactly what I've done for the past 4 years, and the prospect is that the private equity firm, there's a good chance they'll take us public. No guarantees. And frankly, I've always wanted to do that. I just think it's a cool process, and I think I've learned a lot. them on LinkedIn, and good things gonna happen. So. All right. Questions? All right.
Congrats.
Oh, thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The one thing I'll add is, why wouldn't I want to leave? And it's because I think a lot of you know this. I really love Birmingham. It is a great city, and it's got a lot of potential. And I'm invested here. I'm invested in the community. I'm invested in the people. I'm invested in you all. And I don't want to walk away from that. And so the reality is, I told them no because I didn't expect that they would accommodate me. But the flip side to that is that if you're a chief marketing officer, and I expect most of you will be if you're not already, when the music stops in Birmingham, there aren't that many chairs to sit in, right? So I've got a really good friend. I've got a couple of really good friends that that have lost their jobs here in town, and we've worked our tails off to keep them in here, keep them in Birmingham. I don't think Todd would be upset if I said Todd Decker's one of them, the chief marketing officer, Warren Averett. I'm glad he's still here. He makes this place better. So my point is, in that sense, we all have to watch out for each other, right? So if you're committed to living in Birmingham, you want to stay in Birmingham, families in Birmingham, we got to take care of each other. And so that's what, I try to do for Todd, and others would try to do for me. And so keep that in mind as well. All right, let's get on to the topic. So we've seen this before for those of you that were here. I think I've showed this at least once, if not twice. This is the Martech 5000. I think Amy said, is it like 8,000 now? Is it still 5,000? What's the number? This is
I think it's 7,800.
7,800, yeah, some crazy number. And so when we go back to, when we talk about, I was talking with Josh and Chad, and I was talking about the importance of this topic and what they were going to cover, because I talked about earlier the idea that chief marketing officers can't just be creatives anymore. They've got to be right brain and left brain. And part of the left brain, part of the analytical and technical is navigating this landscape. And if you can't, you'll get clobbered. And part of the reason why I was able to have the conversation with Korn Ferry, and part of the reason why I got this job, is that I know just enough in terms of technology and data and analytics to make me a viable candidate. And I don't think if I hadn't learned from literally people like Chad, I don't know that I would have had the shot, because I could talk about what we had done at AFC, and I could talk about what I knew other people were doing. But the point is, as I mentioned to Chad and Josh on the phone when we were preparing for tonight, and I was talking to them, giving them some thoughts, I said, this is fraught with danger. And, in some cases, depending on your firm, depending on the technology, you're talking about investing 7 figures in some of these platforms. And the technology changes so fast that the technology you invested in last year could be irrelevant, or the implementation could go bad, or it could be what you thought it was. And, the stakes are high. You're investing millions of dollars, and then you're spending millions of dollars, and, you can lose your job. And Josh is like, hey, thanks for the pep talk. But that's honestly part of the reason why there's this movement, I don't know if you have read about this, but there's this movement of bringing agency work in-house. And I think it's crazy myself, in part because of this. So I know, we've used different agencies, and one of the agencies I've used most regularly over the past 4 years is Reflex Blue, in part because they're investing 7 figures in platforms that I don't feel comfortable choosing, I don't feel comfortable investing in, and they're leveraging that investment across clients. And I'm sure Intermark's doing the exact same thing. And you've done the same thing for me. Social media, what's the name of the platform that Ted talks about all the time? NetBase. Yeah, like I couldn't afford NetBase. Yeah. I wouldn't know to pick NetBase. But through Intermark, I had access to it. So anyway, so to me, this tonight's topic is directly related to being successful in your current job, and the constant lifelong learning that's required of chief marketing officers in the realm of data and analytics. That's what tonight is about. So, and I'm trying to think, Amy, Drew. So one of the things I said before you guys walked in was, tonight is a round table conversation. So Chad's going to lead it, but I'm really counting on everybody to chime in their own experiences to make it most viable. I'm going to stop there before I pass it off to Chad. Thoughts, reactions to this, your own experiences in terms of choosing technology platforms. Has anybody been wildly successful choosing a platform? Has anybody failed miserably choosing a platform, a technology platform? And we're talking about something as simple as HubSpot, or something as complex as Salesforce.com, or I can go on and on. The list is long, but I'd love to hear somebody chime in about a decision they made on a marketing technology and how it played out.
We've had successes and failures, certainly. We're a technology company, so we are really critical on other technology and other SaaS companies. So if you were to look at our tech stack right now, it looked totally different a year ago, totally different 4 years ago.
Really?
So we evolve a lot. We just implemented Marketo and Salesforce together, so that's kind of our core pieces right now, and it was a long implementation process. We were coming off of some lighter weight CRM and marketing automation.
What were you using before?
We were using a tool called Drip as our marketing automation software.
Yeah.
It kind of brands itself as a very lightweight version of HubSpot or Marketo.
Yeah.
And then we were using a tool called Close.io for our CRM, also very similar.
Yeah.
Kind of a lightweight CRM tool, but we've really evolved our stack a lot over the last 4-ish years. No huge, just terrible fails, but when we realize that we're not getting what we need from a tool, and we can't on our end build an integration to pass data where it needs to go, it's really just the tool that can't do what we need. We have no fear of moving on to the next.
Really?
But again, we're hypercritical because we're a technology company. We build software. But that's kind of how we look at it. We're not really scared to make a move if we're not getting what we need.
I cringe to make a move, so it's fascinating to hear you say that. Wow. Who else?
You talk about sharing information between systems, and one of the things that I did at Mayor, we put in an instance of Salesforce.com and Pardot, which is their marketing automation platform. And it was a little spooky to me how the Salesforce integration really wasn't as difficult as I thought. Now, we didn't put our whole Salesforce live on it. We kind of used it as the man behind the curtain just to aggregate data. But where we ran into a lot of issues was APIs. And I think that's the word that, it's almost like the buzzword. Oh, we have an API for that. Well, really? How does it really work? And so we found out pretty quickly that we were having to do all these manual data transfers in and out, and so that became a little bit of a roadblock. And I don't know. I feel like in some ways that was kind of like, you can pick a platform and you can get move the ball down the field and make a couple of first downs, but you may still be a long way from the end zone. And I feel like that's kind of how we ended up.
I think you're spot on. So compared to AFC, the new company, our website is our lead generation source. It's the lifeblood of lead generation. And so it's not just like nice content and pretty pictures. It is like feeding into CRM and marketing automation, and our website's 5 years old, which is like 1 billion years old. And that's the thing that you're spot on. It is like wiring all this stuff together so that it's seamless. That's why I don't like changing, because it scares me.
I think the integration part was the most complex.
Yeah.
I think one of the best purchases I ever made, you made this one too, was Yext.
Yeah, right?
It was super simple to implement, huge traffic driver.
Yep.
It solved a lot of problems for us at the time.
Yeah.
It was enormously expensive.
Yeah.
But it worked. Exactly what they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yext is like a local SEO tool. It does local citation management. So you can also, I think you guys used it to do local landing pages as well.
Yep.
You
We were using Moz Local, and then we used Next, and we're getting ready to use a company called SynUp, SYNUP. What do you explain? I can talk about about local directories. Everybody know what a local directory is? Okay, then we don't need to talk about it. If you do talk to Amy after third hour, but it's critical. Go.
One more thing, you know, you mentioned a tool that might be helpful for others. We use a tool called Segment. I think it's segment.com. And we essentially, through it, track all of the events that happen on our website.
Uh-huh.
We use it for our product as well, but for marketing purposes. We track all the events, whether it's clicking a button, actually signing up for a trial of our product, downloading a white paper, whatever it is. It tracks all of that, and Segment actually feeds into hundreds of other SaaS solutions. So we send those events into Marketo, we send them into Salesforce, we send them into
Really?
email tools, different things. So it's kind of a consolidator.
Yeah.
If you're looking to get data into all of your other marketing systems.
And what's it called again?
Segment. Segment.com.
Huh.
Yeah.
Shout out to Anna who got me up to speed on HubSpot about a year and a half ago. One more platform. I want to hear about one more platform, one more technology platform. Anybody?
I'm having an interesting problem with a session analytics tool right now. If you want to hear a fail story.
Go.
So I'm trying to get session analytics on our website. So session analytics, like basically you can watch videos of people as they interact with your website, like real people. So you can see how badly your menu is performing, for example.
Yeah.
If people are clumsy with it, which ours was designed, it was already designed by the time I came on board.
So you watch it real time while people are on the website.
It's after, but they record the sessions.
Got it.
And you can, it'll pull data for you, so you can say, I wanna see 30 users who interacted with this particular part of the website. Or we had more than 2 page visits, you know, you can
Does it record all
Google
sessions?
it down, yes.
Holy cow.
You can sample or record all.
Yeah.
So for huge websites, you would wanna sample.
What's the name of this tool?
Let me think of it. It'll come to me.
Okay. We use a tool called Full Story.
Full
For
Story.
that. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, we use that.
So we haven't even started using it yet.
Okay.
Because so we're international, so we have to comply with GDPR for our EMEA market.
Yep.
And then Canada has its own special rules, and California's rolling some out, right? And so every time we go through an implementation process with a tool that's pulling PII, we have to go through this really in-depth analysis.
Yeah.
And it turns out, when you actually look at the code, they can't actually guarantee that they're hiding all the fields that you enter data in like they say they do.
Wow.
So we've spent months scoping out all these different platforms and negotiating with a bunch of them and making sure that they're SAML 2.0 compliant, so we can use SSO, like our single sign-on, it'll work with Ping or Okta, whoever you use. So it's like, it's a really in-depth process. We get to the end and it's like, oh,
Wow.
we can't, so we're gonna use it in the US.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
And we just have to make sure we don't use it for our European markets.
Wow.
But, and then they have to also guarantee that they can go in and scrub any data if someone in EMEA contacts you and asks you to take it off, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Wow.
it's been a very expensive evaluation process,
Yeah.
and I'm not even sure it was worth it at this point. Do you like it?
We like it. We only use it in the US for that reason.
Okay,
Wow.
yeah.
Because
I think that's the word.
we're international, so
Yeah.
as well. So we just use it in the US.
Yeah,
Well,
we haven't gotten final approval to actually, because of the data scrubbing issue,
Yeah.
we still haven't gotten final approval in the US, but I think we're gonna get it. It's just crazy.
That's crazy.
It's a really interesting tool though, in terms of what you can see. We use it on the marketing side and the product side as well.
Yeah. Do you integrate with any other platforms, or is it standalone?
Segment, the tool I mentioned earlier, so we can look at a group of people who have done a certain event, or some sort of action.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool tool. I'm excited to use it.
Yeah.
I have to go over to it.
Yeah.
All right, the time has come. As I said, I don't make this up. I've learned a ton about marketing technology from Chad and his team, and I have a huge amount of respect for Josh. And I knew they were going to do some work together. I knew they worked together in the past, and I just have a huge amount of respect for their intellectual approach to marketing in general, but digital specifically. So, with that, I know I sent his LinkedIn profile. Chad is the chief innovator, is his technical title. I call him the CEO. He's the grand poobah of Reflex Blue. and I've had the firm for 20 years.
This year.
Yeah, 20 years this year, and does a really great job for us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chad and let him take over.
I'm gonna get out of your way. Plug in the bill.
You should be plugged in.
Here we go. All right. So, question: how many of y'all are on client side right now? Because we're divided. And how many of y'all are on kind of provider side right now? Okay, so we got a good mix. It's all good. One thing I will say, working with Bill over the past 4 years, two things I have learned from him. We were actually sharing notes on the culture code, and it's kind of a basic thing. Teamwork and networking is everything. One of the things that I have seen change the most over the past 5 years is understaffed, confused people, turnover, and just lots of buzzwords and all this stuff slinging around and not a lot of results, okay? So we try to do things that are complex with systems, but we believe you have to have simple analytics that people can understand, because a lot of times the CEOs, CMOs, and the owners are supposed to know all this stuff, but you have to make data visualization things simple enough that when they're in the room, they can go, I get it, because they're gonna be nodding their heads anyhow. It's just then when it goes haywire, they get mad at everybody and so on and so forth. So Josh is not here. There's a couple of slides we worked on this together, and you can check on it. So we got Josh.
So he's volunteered.
Yeah, so Josh just said, yes, right. So I get this wrong, you can step up and tell me. So basically, this is the EOC marketing approach for those of y'all that know or may know. Mavis bought EOC in February of last year. Express Oil Change started down here in Homewood many moons ago. Acquired Tire Engineers 3 or 4 years ago. They basically acquired Brakes Plus, who this test case scenario was done third quarter of 2017. So this is the slide that Josh basically is his approach, and you can email him, I'm sure Bill.
I was going to say, I want a copy of this actually. I think that this is really
Yeah.
good.
It's good, and we talked through it. So basically, you got to know the customer. Everybody here knows that. Focus on customer experience. Support store operations. They do a phenomenal job on this. I've seen them change through about 3 or 4 different CEOs. This is one of the things that Josh has leveraged really well. It's not only POS, but CRM. They look at all kinds of metrics, bay times, all these things to make sure that people coming to Express Oil Change and Brakes Plus, basically all their co-brands, are getting what is promised. So basically, meeting and beating customer expectations, and they're very good at it. Leveraging technology, get local, measurable ROIs. So nothing new for any of y'all from a broad strip. You can ask Josh that he can unpack this later if you need to. And I think the other thing too, the brand promise, I do like his tree. How are we going to grow that? Target customer and goal, customer insights, business strategy, brand assets, competitor promises. So making sure we have a USP that's distinctive not only in the promise, but in how it's delivered and how it's experienced. That's one thing at Blue. We've spent a tremendous amount of money over the past 3 years. Content is king, doing all the AI and doing all the modeling and doing all the predictive behavior, and that's fine. But we are competing not only against, in Brakes Plus, not only competing against Pep Boys, we're competing against Nick Saban's press conference. We're competing against the Final Four right now. Whatever we're trying to say, we're competing against Netflix, Love Narcos. We're competing against everything, right? So we're just not competing against our people's competitors. We're competing against content, right? And then he's got his little tree, and he's got his MarTech. This is where he was going to go into Bill's MarTech, some of that Salesforce. And then some of the things they do, direct marketing, price, all the things that kind of make that happen to the customer. Basically, above ground is what the customer sees, experiences, and kind of things that make that happen. Questions about that? Email Josh.
What is it meant by get local? What does that mean for you guys?
Everything we do is hyper-local. It's a very reactive business model. Well, not business model necessarily, but business in general. Nobody wakes up, and we always say nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to spend $1,000 on tires today. They do. There should be wrong with those people.
They do a lot of boots on the ground stuff, flyers, permanent stuff.
Is tire purchasing driven by desperation or by like, I just got my tax return? Like availability, what's the bigger trigger? Is it seasonal?
Yeah, it's fairly seasonal. It's really around the school starts, travel season like now.
Okay.
Which is also, has an element of tax returns to it, but, I don't think we see a huge lift on tax returns. It's more of spring break travel.
Yeah.
We see, I work in automotive, with dealerships, and it's very seasonal. It'll be like May and June, when people, families about to go on a trip,
Yeah.
and go buy a new car. It's also really related to other big life events. If you get married, you're buying a new car, so we can target people like that.
Did you go to college and everything?
Yes. Buy a new house, new car, all the clothes.
I got new tires right before I had a baby.
I do think that's important. It's not in this deck, so no longer on my laptop, but basically we know that by season, not only by tires, but by everything they service, and basically need to allocate your marketing spends on direct. We do a lot of like one-to-one, after it's losing live, we're gonna do online identity resolution to make sure that you're marketing the right service at the right peak time as well, through one-to-one digital, one-to-one social to the person, if that makes sense. So basically using that information is
Do you
key.
use an ABM platform for that, or what do you use?
We're right now, we're basically, we pull that off their system, we publish and match through LiveRamp, and then we are publishing straight through Google 360 and through the Facebook and IG platform.
Okay, cool.
How's retargeting ads worked out for you all?
Retargeting is not something we're doing. I don't know if Ryan can speak to that for them. That's basically after they're catching.
Yeah, we're using it, we've had, really the agency that we're using it to do that right now. It's not necessarily their wheelhouse, so it's a learning curve for them a little bit. So we're not doing a ton of it, I guess, for sure.
We'll get into how we do it. We do it a little bit different. We predefine target sets and carve out control groups and then measure it actually on the transaction level. We'll get into the methodology a little bit as we dive into this. About Brakes Plus, 28-year-old company, full service automotive. If you've been to the EOC, very, very similar. You know, it says Brake Plus and EOC. The experience that I saw was pretty similar. I visited a couple of their stores, acquired Express Oil Change, 2017. Historic marketing focused on awareness and quantity. Honestly, before they bought it, most of their spend was on Yellow Pages and
Television rent.
no, it was what's the Valpak.
Oh.
Yeah, so literally, so the old CMO would go through the Valpak, and the big, advanced learning was how deep you were in the Valpak deck. If you're on the top of the Valpak, like they were rocking. If they were on the bottom of the Valpak, they
That
weren't.
makes
So.
my heart hurt.
Changed pretty quick.
Yeah, but the crazy thing about it is you hear stories like that everywhere. Like we think everybody's on the cutting edge of that. A lot of people really aren't. It's just true. So
When I got to AFC 4 years ago, we were spending 6 figures a year in print yellow paper.
yeah, he's gonna make a comeback. I mean, it's coming back. It's gonna knock out Facebook.
That was my first big decision.
Yes.
Stop spending money.
Easy decision.
When I started at my job, we were spending 7 figures on like holding checks, like literally going to bars and buying beer for the guys who are trying to like, we call them hugging checks.
Wow.
7 figures.
Wow.
Now whoever started that plan,
Happy people. You take it away and they.
he probably's a congressman now. He went on his boats, kind of the Pablo Escobar by his boat still.
I had to hide when I changed the.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyhow, opportunity to introduce customer-focused marketing, basically is what we're talking about here. One of the things that we're doing, and everything is, hope is right. A lot of it's betting. We're investing a lot of money in technology to do videos that are consumable, easy. This is, we call this a blue cast. This is a snippet of the overall project, give you a look at a high level of what the initiative was. All right. He did all this stuff, and then he took all my sound away. Sorry, give me 1 sec.
Yeah.
So the red is their brain color, not your brain color, right?
Correct.
Just out of curiosity, the commercial kind of looked kind say like, just picture like that was running on the Cartoon Network and a parent was sitting there watching it. They designed the kind of thinking in mind to make the child, the parent catches on to it.
Not at all working. That's what I'm trying to do. Turn my sound down a little bit. I know. Boom. Here we go. Here we go. I got it. Huh? We're good. We're good. Saved by the bell. All right. Come on, baby. There we go.
America's favorite car care company, Brakes Plus, has made a name for itself by helping Americans stay on the road longer with greater confidence. As their growth surged, they saw an opportunity to help even more people. They thought, hey, let's test person-based digital and social marketing in the Dallas area. Brakes Plus teamed up with Blue, who brought along the power of brand washing to identify and convince high-profit prospects and customers to experience a pit stop like no other. From Labor Day through Christmas, Blue's algorithm identified the 78,817 people in Dallas most likely to transact with Brakes Plus. By touching them an average of 20 times per month through digital, social, and mail, we convinced their mind and warmed their hearts to the Brakes Plus brand. Working as a team, we created a content library. When our original ads showed fatigue, we improved them. When the high-traffic holiday season approached, we invented a game to drive further engagement. Our people-based approach allows us to use control groups, so we report revenue and gross profit on an incremental basis, so the good folks at Brakes Plus were able to see real-time results online, down to the transaction level. Working as a team, Brakes Plus and Blue produced a 205% gross profit return on the marketing investment in 4 short months, and we are just getting started. Great brands focusing on the right people with the right message and the right offer only get better.
Do what?
No, at first I thought you was going to show us like a TV spot, and I was like, well, they're like something that could run on the Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody sitting down with a parent and be like, the child can catch on, and the
Yeah.
parent can catch on.
Hey.
But it was very impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, so a couple of things in there that I think are pretty important to go over, and I'm going to walk through kind of methodology. The older I get, I need to make sure I have visual and maps. I do think that these are more critical. The more people you have, and when you're getting, Bill mentioned in his new job, there's not a lot of people around a lot. The more kind of dispersed we are, having visuals and maps and plans that everybody walks through and kind of gets opportunity to discuss is critical. I have to have this all the time to go back to it. How we did this is this is our plan. Brand washing is the brand of what we do. It's kind of a play on words. We do believe ultimately you have to warm the heart and convince the mind over and over and over with emotional and rational benefits. And like I said, we do that with this plan. There is no better predictor of future behavior than past and present behavior. Okay. And so basically, we always start any endeavor with any customer with their customer database and trying to understand everything we can. What types of people bring the most money? What are the attributes that we can define future prospects so that we can predict statistically which ones to market to? How do we break them apart in terms of treatments, in terms of seasons? What can we gain in terms of when to market, how to market, what to market, when and where to market? So April, when it's raining a lot, if you want to run a oil change and wiper deal, better do it in April than in late October, right? You can use data as many ways as you creatively want to do. And that's the one thing that we try to do. Our kind of rallying cry is we are create-alytical. Meet a lot of people and they're like, it's all about data, it's empirical, it's this, it's that. And I'm like, okay, I'll buy that. I'm talking to somebody who's invested a ton of personal money in SAP and LiveRamp and all these 7-figure things. But at the end of the day, we're all people, right? I mean, at the end of the day, not everybody here is wearing the cheapest stuff. We're wearing things because they make us feel good. We're driving cars because they do something to us. People are persuadable and people's behaviors are easy to pattern. Once you get to pattern, you can predict that. You can leverage it for your brand's good. So basically, you can kind of see the customer base. We call this a man map. We kind of broke down a lot of the things that we do. Josh was supposed to bring some discounts for Express Oil Change. It's supposed to have an interactive part here. But just out of curiosity, got a lot of smart people in here. So when you break down the data, if you were gonna look through their database and you think of all the different things, we break things down in blue based on receptiveness or resistance, right? So there's elements in any brand, okay? No matter what you're trying to sell, unless somebody's pushing salt or oxygen here, which we all kind of use on a one-on-one basis, not everybody, but most people. Receptive or resistance. What would be one of the top things that would be resistance to somebody being a profitable customer for Brakes Plus or EOC for that matter?
I don't know why I think free oil changes, like a lot of these dealerships now are pushing that. I know Jim Burke is doing that. Free oil changes for life.
So play that out. Do all people get free oil changes or who gets a free oil change?
Oh, I feel like it's a catch to it. Like, as soon as you buy a car, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Brand new cars.
Brand new cars, particularly
Yeah.
imports, right? Yep. So that's one of them. What else? You don't own a car, all right? What types of people don't own cars? Metro, right? So if it's really, really weird. If you're in the middle of a city or if you're way, way, way out in rural, those are the two biggest suppressants of ever becoming a customer. Those are the two big. You think it was money, you think it's this, type of auto, all that. Those are the two biggest, okay? What else? What are a couple of things?
What about bad infrastructure? And what I mean by bad infrastructure, like the interstates being closed down, bumpy roads, where I think in the next 2 years, local express oil changes or whatever, other local companies, they're gonna make a lot of money off of alignments because you got bumpy roads and they're not.
Hey, maybe they're behind it. Who knows? I mean, there's big key money. Maybe they get out there and just on the road, you know, get some tire fast. That's it. Yeah, we're not able to trace that data point down, and you know, as far as that, but
Busy families.
yeah. So basically, people that have more money than they have time. All right. So some of it is so people like me, the more vehicles you have, and it's really interesting. You find life cycles, right? So kind of rewind the tape on my life. After being in Atlanta and Auburn, came to Birmingham and worked. I was kind of what we call a single starter. Okay, but I've only got one person in my household to market to, and I'm not very responsible, so I'll change my oil about once every 8 or 9 months. Okay, so then we get married. We have 2 cars, but one of them's new, so Eddie's car goes off the grid. I buy a new, and we kind of go off the grid with oil changes. Well, then we have kids. We start saving for money. Our Suburbans and my Tahoe gets a little bit older. We start doing that, and now I just bought my car. I have 4 kids, 2 of them driving. So now I have 4 cars that are 4, 5. I do this one. 4. They're all 4 or 5 years old. We're the perfect family to market to. If you are a convenience, premium, upgrade service like Express Oil Change or one of their competitors, I am not going to go to Walmart. I am not going to go to Costco. I'd rather thing burn down and jog home than have to deal with those people. Right? And just being honest with you, I don't have time. NTB, you know, I've been there before. If you've got time for it, that's fine. But yeah, I don't. I mean, and you can check me on this. I'm wrong. Most going to say a lot of times, the only times that EOC has got into the tire business with credibility with tire engineers because of the brands they carry. Initially, their biggest brand was Yokohama, which didn't have a huge footprint of AAU, attitude awareness usage in the Southeast. They kind of struggled. Mavis and all that, that's their A game now. You can correct me on that. Right?
Yeah, so I mean, Mavis carries a different line.
Yeah.
They specialize in a different line. Around 65% of all tires we sell are the major mass brands, Michelin, Euro,
Michelin, yeah.
PFG, and Firestone, Bridgestone.
Yeah.
And Mavis really focuses on Firestone, Bridgestone, Coups.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So end of the day, yeah, so if we're predicting, we can go out and predict, and we can take this model and put it on. We're linked into Axiom's master US database like 24/7. So we can take any household in the United States and put a score on it and tell you statistically likelihood to become a customer, and then give you an estimate of revenue over a 1-year period. So that's when we go to market with projections in terms of revenue once we have enough data and information on it.
Sorry, what is that access, unlimited access to Axiom's database cost you annually?
I don't even know now, Bill. We started that 15 years ago, and I just kind of.
It's a big number.
And don't you use like Prism or Esri or Personix?
Mm-hmm.
or
So That's a great question. Segmentation systems to me are key, not only which ones you use, but at which level you use them, okay? So we only look at household level segmentation systems, okay? So there's household level, which basically you're analyzing a singular household. There's a Z6, which is a street address. It could be a condo, it could be a triplex, it could be this. There's Z4s and there's zip code. A lot of people, and a lot of these systems are built for different things, okay? Esri's more of a kind of block group. It's to get it in the area, but basically you're taking the average of sometimes 50 to 80 households and going, okay, somewhere in this, these people look like that, okay? That's great if this was Legoland, everybody's homogenous, but we don't look alike, right? We're working right now for somebody where like religious affiliation and political viewpoints are the two biggest factors of this. So you could be right next to each other, same exact household, same exact household income, and just be diametrically opposed, right? So because what we do works always at the individual level so that we can carve out control groups, we only use household level information and individual level information, if that makes sense. Not to say those other things aren't good, but it's important to also understand that every one of those you can purchase, all of those. I don't know if Esri goes to household, but I know that we use Personics, we use cohorts. If you're going to do any type of investment services, cohorts was built for that. Cycle is the gold standard for financial service industry. We use that for all our banks. We've got about 12 banks to do business with. Prism, we also use a whole lot for retail. Prism and Cycle are Claritas and Nielsen products that kind of invented the category way back when in 1970. Personics is the Axiom product. Cohorts is a kind of spawn off them. Thank you. But yes, and the good thing about it is once you have one of those, you can connect it anytime, anywhere, and anything you want to. So, questions about any of that? It's good. So anyhow, you can see underneath the brand prefix index, basically fast-paced families and active adults. And this, we don't have personas, but we do believe in understanding your personas. We also understand what percentage of them are Caucasian, Hispanic, whatever, you have African American, whatever, it's important to understand. And it changes. So you think about a test in Houston versus a test in Tampa versus a test in Phoenix versus Birmingham. Those are completely different locales, and you better understand that when you're going out with, because we're developing, images, we're developing all kinds of videos. You need to understand language barriers and things of that nature and pay attention to it when you're marketing. You see up there locally, trade area drive time analysis, because this is part of what we did against the 16 stores. We bought receptive prospects based on all that information, right? So basically, we get on a rooftop, we use drive time analysis. A lot of people are like, hey, let's use a radius. Let's do a 3 mile, a 5 mile, a 7 mile. That's great if you're marketing to birds, but people drive, right? And drive time is essential. And it's one of those things, you'll bump into it. If you deal with some people who have been in business a long time, they live and die by that, and you can make the argument. But the biggest thing about it is if you want it to work, use drive time. Those things are very reliable. I know the Axiom data set is working off the same data set that is sitting right there on your phone and tells you how long it gets here, because they're sharing data with Apple on a nanosecond by nanosecond basis.
Are you having a customer or using LiveRamp data to calculate how, like, with their drive time, how long they need to wait before they're your customer again? Like, before they come in and get new tires or their oil changed or?
Yeah, okay. You can do all, and a lot of that you got odometer settings, and that's first party data is going to be more predictable than third party for that. So, that's a great question. Any other questions on that?
Makes me miss consumer.
Do what?
It makes me miss B2C.
Yeah, it's fun. Hey, there's more and there is more connective data out there at a individual. It's very scary. I read the book in high school. I'll date myself here. 1984, George Orwell. Like Big Brother's watching you. Well, he is. And every time you sign up, and that Apple thing says, hey, you agree with all our stuff, you're saying yes. Share every bit of my information with everybody you want to monetize to. So basically in this Axiom consortium, a guy named, pretty cool thing, 4 years ago was invited to this. Everybody realized Google was about to put everybody else in business, and everybody but Google showed up at this Axiom Data Consortium. They built an audience onboarding platform by a guy named Dr. Phil Mui, who built all the original tools for Google. He got his money, came over here, and so basically everybody that was in the room, there was anybody, started saying, we got to start sharing and monetizing this data and connect it all together, or Google's fixing to put us all out of business. So pretty cool. As you think about the power of, I think say this all the time, if I had, Michael Sears' debit and credit card transactions, how easy would it be to predict where he was likely to eat if he was going to eat out? Pretty doggone easy, right? How long would it be, to see how many times a year he traveled? Think about that. Well, all that data is being dumped into all these consortiums. They're being connected to how much your house is worth, what type of cars you have. All these different things are being modeled and sitting there when pulled. So when we do this analysis, we're looking at 3,000 different data points that connect the most connective tissue to the individual brands. It's way different. NSPC, where Bill is now, it's going to look a lot different than AFC, even though they're both in healthcare. Conservative Women for America, which is a new client of ours up in Washington, looks a lot different than anything we've ever done. So it's neat and it's fascinating to me to help brands identify people, because we do believe that CWA should take donations from anybody. I don't believe they should spend money marketing their donor engagement to anybody. I think NSPC will treat anybody with back pain. I don't think they should market to everybody. So questions about that? Thoughts?
In terms of your receptive prospects, I know in the video it said in the Dallas area you kind of found about 78,000 prospects. Really, that isn't a lot of people that you're serving ads to, but then I noticed that you serve messages up to 20 times. How many different creative messages was that?
There is a bunch. I think, that's not a very good answer, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. I'm going to the beach tomorrow, and Auburn almost lost, had a semi-heart attack preparing for this. And my kid's oil change, supposed to take his Jeep to the beach, and I'm about to beat my kid up on the phone coming down here. I'll give you that's a great question. I mean, we had probably 37 different gifts by the time you add up all the different gifts and iconography, and we do a lot of different things. It was a lot.
Yeah.
And I will share this, surprisingly, I'm such a hard-headed guy. A lot of the most engaging ones were not the bullet to the brain discounts, which all marketers think they are. It was like, hey, because we did a cool thing for Thanksgiving where it was, first Thanksgiving, as y'all know, was in 1621. Everybody knows that, right? So we did $16.21 off. You're like, man, that's a heck of a deal. If you're in the oil change business, like usually it's $10 and no more here in this market, right? Or Ricky would go put him in a chokehold. So, but $16.21, so I was like, man, they're gonna run in. Well, actually the trivia stuff about Thanksgiving and like how many turkeys does it take to hear from, that's what got everybody engaged, and that's where all the traction came from. So we did that, and with the game we kind of recycled, when you get gamification going on, that is great on the consumer side, because then you kind of have some fun with it and put some stuff in there that's just not brand centric, but it's connected to the brand, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Some vending scenarios.
Real quick, because Natalie asked a really good question. And so this is the process that Blue has used for AFC and is about to use for NSPC. So in some ways I think Chad undersells this, or maybe I oversell it. It's probably more likely. On that little man with the puzzle pieces, can you put that back up just for a second?
Oh, I was going to grab all the stuff we use. Where are we?
So that little puzzle man, in the urgent care space, what we determined is what they determined for us is that only about 40% of the population was open to using urgent care. Okay, 60%. An old lady who's been seeing the same doctor for 20 years and has chronic conditions is never coming to a doctor box. So I'm not going to spend a dime marketing to her. What these guys did was they literally took our entire database and they sorted through who was which psychographic segments using Prism, which psychographic segments were statistically most likely, and why there was only 78,000 households in Dallas is the same reason why you'd only market to 10,000 people within a 10-minute drive time of an AFC clinic, is because statistically their likelihood of coming into an AFC or going to a Breaks Plus is like, you're stacking the deck in your favor by a long shot. There are probably 6 million people, 7 million people in Dallas, and you're targeting 78,000 because they're statistically most likely and they're within a 10-minute drive time. I mean, it is, to me, this is now the future marketing is marketing the state, and it's only going to get more sophisticated. But I mean, I swear by this stuff, and so I'll stop there. Show me creative.
And I do think that is key, and I do think that when I first started, 20 something years ago, before I started my own business, when I was in this, there was basically used to have focus groups, so you could decide on one mail piece or one this or one that. Truth about it now is we do content libraries and allow the consumers to tell us which ones are the most engaging, which it's more emotional, more rational. As the click-throughs and engagements go up, we figure out what about that's working, and we invent more videos that do that. The ones that aren't working, we take it down, right? So basically, let the consumer be your focus group, okay? Now, don't do stupid stuff, obviously. You got to be within the brand. Safe Travel Special Week. This is some of the stuff we did. Let me see if I can get through this real quick. So this is how it looks. So this is kind of the portal of how it did. Kind of a little example. We had this Did You Know series, so we had all these just trivia things, and basically then the whole thing was how do you talk turkey with the in-laws, and did some social stuff with that as well. So that's the way it looks. Here's all the different videos we did for that. Of course, all those, you got all the different sizes to fit all the different inventory. And that was only about 2 weeks of the 4 months. And I'll get a total, that's a great question. But it's somewhere, it's north of 40, I know, that we did.
How does that compare with what you would do now in the campaign?
We do a lot of the same kind of trade area analysis and have a pretty small scale. Where we run into issues is clients typically don't have the budget to put together that many creative assets, so our stuff gets old fast.
Yeah.
And we see engagement drop off pretty quickly. Mm-hmm.
So what's your budget on just your social aspect of pushing that out? I mean, I know not everybody follows Break Plus on Instagram per se. So how do you get that out to all your customers? Is it paid advertising?
That's really Josh, and I don't know if he wants me to talk about all that, to be honest with you.
I can talk about that.
Talk about that. But I think what we're not talking about is correct. So how we got to 78,817 was statistically they wanted equal amount between all 12 centers in the Dallas area with a specific budget. So that's how we netted back down. But that's why it's good. Statistically, know every household have a number on them, and so basically, if you're like, okay, you just do simple math. You take that, you divide it by 12. You know how much it's going to cost you to have a 4-month campaign where you touch somebody 80 times through digital and direct social and 2 mail drops, then just divide it out and do the math and pull that many households, highest statistically first down to the household. So
I think Jessica's answer is really in the web of content. We'll just talk, generically about that.
Yeah, and I do think the web of content basically is develop what we're talking about, and I think it's one of those things that we're learning every day is more and more critical. We grew up doing banks in Birmingham at one point in time. It was here, 2008. It was 94% of our revenues. I don't know if any of y'all were around in banks. I know Michael was back then, but that was a meltdown day, and that was a scary deal. And it was, you did all this modeling, and you did all that, and you did some direct mail, then you tracked it 60 days later, and you hope the heck did it work, right? So the whole idea of a web of content is realizing that as people walk, and you saw it in the video, as people are walking through life, you're gonna be able to surround them with as many different touch points as you can with different emotional and rational benefits that have been proven to trigger the emotional response. Everything we're doing, our big, hairy, audacious goal is to drive 3 million transactions in the next 18 months. We are transactions. Everything we do, when I talk to my customers, I don't care if you get a click or a like, that's part of the plan. I want to show you got an incremental transaction out of your database so it's provable. And so the whole web of content is all these different libraries and understanding all the different segmentations and everything we just talked about. What's the seasonality? What's the treatment? What's the the purchase type you're going to buy? You have to have all those are different contents. We had at AFC, we had a treatment bubble. So this is when you start getting to local, okay? Well, flu doesn't hit Denver when it hits Birmingham. So we don't run flu ads at the same time we're running them for that. So the content library also has to be kind of, flexible enough to be able to run through different zonality if you're marketing nationwide and things of that nature there. So it basically is having a library of dialogue that you're able to cover the gamut of all your services you're trying to cross-sell, if you can cross-sell, that fits all the hyper-local issues that you have, that sells everything you can emotionally and rationally with discounted offers that you can test. So.
And sorry, so I'll hit the web content, and
Yeah.
I'll just talk about it from an AFC standpoint. So to me, one, I've got to give Michelle Elrod credit for what we did with Chad's team. So, you know, in traditional advertising, you'd run, you know, an 8-week flight of television. There are no markers here, so I'll just pretend. You'd run 8 weeks of television, and maybe you do billboards, and you'd have a campaign for 8 or 12 weeks or 13 weeks or however long, and then you'd go dark. And you look at the results. And then you start again, you know, do 12 weeks, 20 weeks. Now they probably tell you better than me how clients do it. But what Michelle Elrod said is like, that's not the way the world works anymore. And so what she said is, we're always on. They're not doing campaigns anymore. They're doing always on. And that's I'm like, oh my God, she's right. And so that's what we started doing. But this web of content is, to me, the key. So when we identified at AFC, and we're gonna do the same thing at NSBC, when we identified the 40% of households that were most likely to use us within a 10-minute drive time, we would create content and we would target them across platforms. So through LiveRamp, raise your hands if you know LiveRamp. Okay. LiveRamp, Chad, can you describe it more eloquently, but they match your technology. So if I know your physical address, I know the mobile devices associated with that household. I know the IP addresses associated with that household. I know the social media accounts associated with that household. And so I can identify a physical address, and I can hit them with direct mail, and I can hit them with mobile, and I can hit them with a desktop, and I can hit them on their social media accounts. In our case, I think we were touching people on average every other day. So, you know, if you were doing television, traditional network television, and you hope to get, you know, 3 ads in front of somebody over a 8-week period, like, you know, it's gonna work, but I'd rather touch somebody 15 times over a 30-day period across channels. And to me, that's what this web of content does. And the LiveRamp technology does something that I think is revolutionary.
Yeah, there's a couple of players. Online identity resolution. Basically what they do is they allow you to match to people's online persona. Okay, you can do it B2B. We were actually on a conference call yesterday with them, doing some stuff with a test with a company here in town that's a new client of ours. So long story short, everything that you have is going to be anchored to, probably a lot of us use our work email, probably a lot of you have a personal email. So you think everything is anchored to that, right? So think about everything that you sign up for, and that's what's called PI, personally identifiable identification, okay? So long story short, the old anchor where they used to aggregate and put all this data to was your house. Mine's 4039 Lambert Terrace, Vestavia Hills, Alabama 35242. Okay, my house is there, my taxes are there, everything is anchored. All the information was anchored there, okay? If I bought a new car and it was gonna go into some type of survey that Prism was gonna use, they said, okay, there's the street address. They went in there, they modeled that back in there, okay? Now the online anchor is your email, okay? Netflix, you gotta sign up for that. If you're my password to watch CBS today, everything you're doing is anchored to that. So basically, they're householding all that information to that email, and then they've gone back and verified that that email is attached to this street address. And they do some real scary stuff to double validate it and go, okay, your location services, if they are parked at this 4039 from 12 o'clock at night to 6 in the morning, more than 85% of the time, more than likely, that is a triple validator, that's your home address. That's kind of scary, but that's the way the world works now. Everybody leaves that stuff on, your phone's there unless now there's obviously people that don't do that if you work the 3rd shift, night shift and all that, but that's the 85% rule. So they're validating, and so now they understand that cookie 907310 that's attached to this cell phone number that's using this identification number, they can match it all the way back to my household, and once you do that, we've got 8,000 pins. I can tell you the likelihood to eat french fries. Literally, there's a model sitting in there that is the percentage likelihood to eat french fries. Also your credit score, your house, how many kids you got, how old you are, how much you made last week. I mean, the connective tissue of data now that used to be where, in my opinion, Google had free reign, where everybody's like, oh, it's inbound, it's inbound, it's inbound. We don't know who's coming inbound. It's a cookie. 40% of all that stuff that's programmatic is bots anyhow. Go look at the stats. LiveRamp takes bots and everything out of the picture because it's online identification, going back and making sure it's a human doing activity that's matched back to all of us. And the beauty of it, everything that we do, because we're doing presets of targets. So like for Bill, we're fixing to do for NSPC, 10 stores, 5,000 customers, 2,500, hopefully future patients, not customers, patients, patients that are coming in. Well, we're going to define those up front. We're going to carve control groups, so we're going to market to some, doing our web of content over a 4-month period, unless Bill gets a bigger budget. We'll do a 6-month period, and then we'll go back in and we'll say, okay, these came in because of our marketing. Here's the control group. They're going to come in anyhow because the brand is good. Well, then you just do a subtraction out of it. And because you're doing it at the personal level and you're validating online identity resolution, you have an incremental effect. You spent this, you got this, what's your revenue? That's the bottom line everybody wants to see, is a nice equation function of ROI based on incremental effect of marketing, not we got 20 million likes or 10 million hits or a couple of bumps.
And because they know the home address, whether it's a client or a prospect, when that home address shows up in my database as a client, like I know I targeted that person, and I know they showed up. I know how much I spent targeting that person, and how much they spent with us. So I know dollar for dollar what I spent and what I got. Private equity firms love that. And essentially what they've said is, if you can do what your spreadsheet said, this is my first board meeting, has spreadsheet. Private equity people love spreadsheets. I said, you know, this is what we're going to target. This is how many households we're going to target. This is the cost. This is with a 60 basis point liftover control response rate. This is the ROI. It's a 72% ROI on prospects, over 100% blended is 100% ROI. They're like, you don't really have much of a budget right now, but if you can do that, it's accretive to earnings, and we'll bring you wheelbarrow full of money. Like, we'll just dump it in your office. So, and so the point is, to me, a lot like direct mail was 10 years ago. You could match a targeted address and an address that shows up. But television billboards, I mean, name all the channels that you traditionally use. It's tough to do. You can measure brand awareness and consideration, you know. But I think it's tough. I think attribution's tough, you know, without this technology. I don't mean to put you on the spot, man. I'd love to get your take on all this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously this is the way of the world now.
Yeah.
I think it plays a very important role. I think it's getting us closer and closer to that attribution model that's been so difficult for brands to achieve in the past.
Totally.
With that being said, though, I mean, obviously I'm a media geek. I don't feel like all forms of media are dead. I feel like they all can work together to achieve that goal. I mean, obviously television is at a different place today, but I think if you do it the right way, in conjunction with a really detailed digital plan, that's where I see brands have the most success.
I totally agree with you. Well, what's interesting is, Natalie doesn't know this, but one of the things that we're talking about doing is Pandora. Natalie's executed some Pandora campaigns for us. And I agree. I think actually, I'm thinking about markets where, you know, we would execute Pandora and execute this, and I think we get an even greater lift as a result. I think it's spot on.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, go.
Pandora's dead, go with Spotify.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Pandora's done. It's,
Really? Wow.
You know, the tools we use come and
Yeah.
go. Sometimes the same
Really?
for
Why is that?
platforms. It's just not a lot of people are using Pandora anymore.
Oh,
Now they're not deleting their accounts,
Yeah.
so the accounts are just living out in space.
Wow.
But not a lot of people are listening. Spotify's
Wow.
king.
Wow.
Speaking of traditional media, have you guys noticed how many billboards there are now at Netflix? Like
Yeah.
everywhere. I feel like I see them all the time. It's funny.
A brand with a lot of
What about cable
awareness.
boxes?
Right?
Yeah, very much awareness.
Are you all able to get data from the cable boxes yet?
So basically, there's a lot of the cable providers that are basically allowing you to buy programmatic by segmentation. and it depends on who's you're talking about. Most of those are doing a lot of self-reported stuff, so it's not validated back at this level. It's a lot of segmentation and kind of more kind of old school striation of like, hey, it's probably 30 to 50-year-old African Americans making around $50,000 to $80,000. So,
what's your take, Natalie, on the future? I didn't even call it television anymore. I mean, it's digital video, right?
Yeah.
It's video.
Yeah, video.
We just call it all video, and it's the way we all consume it every single day. Yeah, we might still have cable. Are we watching network television as often as we used to? You know, we're watching a lot of Netflix. We're watching a lot of Hulu and different platforms like that. So kind of how we approach it is just blended buys.
Yeah.
A little bit of television, a little bit of digital video, connected TV inventory is obviously the huge thing now, but that's how we all consume it. So that's how we have to approach it.
How do you look at brands that are made by their digital video buys, like Squatty Potty? Like we've all seen the Squatty Potty video, right?
Mm-hmm.
But nobody knew what Squatty Potty was before that. Like they're like Dollar Shave Club.
Yeah.
You know, they put out one phenomenal video and it builds the whole brand.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And they
Pull that back up.
Yeah. What a great example. That's a great example.
sorry, I was trying to flip out. I had a Nielsen slide that was talking about how many hours a day. It's like this year, Nielsen Claritas report is like 11.09 hours per day of connected media. If you're over the age of 18, that's an average for Americans right now. 11. So that's all of our screen time, everything we're doing here at work, we're doing here on the way home. When we get home and watch TV, it's 11.09 hours. So, and the beauty that I love about using LiveRamp, I don't really care where you are, I'm serving you. So, you know, that's the whole thing about it. It used to be we had to buy this and had to buy that, and should we go on L.com? Where I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm stalking an individual and I'm serving them. So,
Faces, not places.
yeah, exactly. So,
Faces, not places.
yeah,
I don't really care where you are. I found you.
yeah.
So I have a do you know how to do this question that's very self-serving. Do you know how using these technologies or others to like develop a predictive model for when you expect certain executives to change roles? Like, so say a chief information security officer, just hypothetically, like they last about 18 months, and when they move, they spend a lot of money at the new place.
Yeah.
And so you kind of want to warm up their influencers before, anyway, just before like predicting someone's going to get fired and or someone's about to make a move.
Are you fixing to
They
take
really
over a
need
small
a
country?
spot.
Sounds like a Tom Clancy movie or something.
There's a company that LinkedIn sued that would study your behavior on LinkedIn and see if you're making a lot of updates and things like that, like
Yeah.
might be looking for a job, and they were selling those
Did
lists
they
to people.
win?
I don't know. I remember reading an article saying LinkedIn was suing them because they were using their property like sell ads to other people or API
Yeah.
or whatever.
I would buy that.
Yeah, so that was
Okay.
that's what you're looking.
Yeah, it's a very small audience we're looking for and a very specific use case, and it's super hard to. We're looking at different ways to figure
But-
it out. We haven't done it yet.
But to answer your question, if you have somebody that has a small enough audience where you can go use LinkedIn and by hand, you pick it, you throw in an Excel spreadsheet, it's yours to do whatever you want to with, and you go market that, and then because you've got the start date of when they started the new job, then you've got kind of a tickler file when you start marketing, so you could do that for sure.
I would digress in class. I haven't thought that talk about.
Okay. I love your thoughts on that.
So anyhow, speed it up here. Sorry, we got to digress. Web of content. We want to take them somewhere. Customer journey is important, right? Patient journey is important. Whenever you're selling, is whatever donation journeys. Basically, go to a landing page, want to do something for Breaks Plus. We use this, and this is an investment that we are still trying to decide if we're going to invest in. Basically, push to mobile wallet. I invested a lot of money this last year and has not returned. So, talking about basically on all the mobile ads, instead of like, hey, do this, do that, push this button and it shows up. So I don't know if y'all, I use this for flight info and everything. I am trying to use it for other stuff. There's not a lot of people doing it. So I think everybody's used to doing it for like Delta. I don't know how much of us are using it for other things, and I've bet a lot of money that we're doing it. So for the sake of me, try to add it to something else just to get some groundswell going on.
I do it for concert tickets.
Yeah.
Concert tickets, yeah. So there's certain things we're doing it, but the adaptation curve is slow. But the whole thing is this. Once we have them here, we can serve them ads. We're kind of behind the scenes, kind of like Mooyah or Starbucks or whatever. Once I'm down, it's kind of like a Trojan horse. I've got you in there. I know how long the ad is. I can serve you. Oh, hey, your ad's about to expire. Would you like to download a new one? So once you're inside the phone, then you're kind of golden, right? You can kind of serve whatever, and you can push notification at no charge that you don't have to go back to the ad buy network. You're home behind the scenes. So
were you personalizing the media at the bottom of the funnel because you do have so much data on them?
at the bottom of the funnel, it's tracking back to the transactions that occur at the store level.
So, but right before that, the landing page, are you personalizing the landing page?
Personalizing landing page is no.
Okay.
We don't know who came in because everything's anonymized. So with live round, it's all anonymous. It's got to be anonymous or you can't buy it and be illegal, right? So it's privacy protected. So the match all the way back comes in, and we've tried to put different stuff in forms and try to get more information right between here and here, just too much fall off. So our whole deal is let's make money first, and then we'll figure out how to attribute it later. A lot of times I work with people who spent so much money trying to figure out was it the third ad or the fifth ad or the seventh ad. I can't tell you why I bought this, or bought this gum, Most attributions model will say, well, because you clicked on the Google thing, you did it. Well, that's just not that easy. So the bigger picture is, have we made money and are we making more money? And then the attribution can come after we make money is kind of our stance. So yeah, Visit Brings Plus feeds that. We track, show reports. Campaign tracking to us is essential. Here's the KPIs: engagements, interests, direct interactions. And one on this was mobile wallet, and we were supposed to put in, what's the tool y'all use to do reservations?
For Breaks Plus?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of it.
I can't figure it out.
We never got the fee. But basically, if they were to go in and sign up for a schedule, they schedule appointments there. We're supposed to get that fee. It never happened. Transactions. And hey, one of the things, you'll have to amen, Dar, do it. You got to really smooth the data people that are giving you the data until you get it directly from the source. Because if not, we can't do anything with it, right? And a lot of times they're protected class, I guess is the best way to say it. So get your data people smoothed if you can, unless they report to you directly, and still smooth. So this is everything that we wanted to measure in transactions. This is the actual number right here. Actually, no, this is the 24th, August through September 29th. This is an old slide right here. So basically here, I thought this was interesting to show to y'all. I have permission for Josh. So basically, right at 6 million touches in the first 35 days. Interests are basically any type of interaction within that ad. Direct interaction was, we had this up late, the mobile wallet got added late. Probably like most of y'all, you're getting stuff up, and then after you get it up, you keep adding stuff because it's too confusing to get everything up at the same time, so everything moves so fast. And then basically the transactions are 6410. So that's how the funnel looks in terms of how much you're touching, how much they're interacting, and how much they're transacting. Linear, high to low. Brainwashing, we had to take away the dollars off this. This is the very first slide. Long story short, you'll see customers, control groups, prospects, prospect control groups, the campaign totals. And basically the customers and customer control continue to diverge. I think our final numbers were like 45% on the customer. Customer control is about 39%, and then about 5 on prospects and about 2.1 on prospect control.
We'll go back real quick.
Yep. We had to take out all the dollars, according to Josh. So incremental visits, target performance minus control group performance. Critical. You only do it if you're marketing 2 people that you can carve out all the way through the process in a set data group. This was a pretty important slide because very early on, there's always a naysayer, right? Right? And everything you're doing is always, oh yeah, you marketing people, you always want to give it away, sure, So there's one individual who's like, okay, well, sure, if you give away that, we're not going to make any money off of them. So what we did is first we had to go and figure out which one of the coupons was most interchanged, and it was 93.1. I know is the discount oil change. So basically the whole idea is there, if you can get them in and get the hood up and start a conversation, sooner or later, if you do that right, you'll earn the right to do more business. I didn't have that in there. Long story short, we had to show them how many of the people came in with an oil change, what the actual price tag was on that. Not at liberty to say, but the guy was like, well, sure, if you're getting $15 off. It's only, you know, a $12 sale. The average tag was 10 times that. So different data reports, not only to show what's going on, but when everybody's trying to poke holes in your stuff, if you've got revenue, if you've got everything, you can show it. It's never as simple as all the hole pokers make it seem. Right. It's very critical. This was just kind of cool. Most of y'all are well aware of this. Basically looking at CTAs, click-through ratios, and engagements. Basically, when we got in here, we launched like everybody else. We're kind of sweating to get everything up and going, and then looked at it on Facebook and on display, and they were looking different. And most of y'all know this because they load different at different times. And basically, Facebook gets bored a lot quicker. You mentioned making sure you've got inventory at the micro level, and that's when we learned and did some fun things and put gamification and got after it pretty good. All that's part of that. A couple of fun things, talking about some of the creative ideas. So basically they had whatever it was, a $15 oil change. Well, I mean, it's Dallas, right? I mean, Big D, Lone Star Special. I mean, make it local, you know? I mean, the coupon code's the coupon code in the POS system. Make it theirs, you know? Do something to make it local. So we did that. They want to sell a lot of different fluids. So basically, and you can probably speak in this a little different. You've looked at this more than I have. So basically, they've got all these different ways to get $10 off all these different types of fluids. Everybody knows about BOGO. Love Publix. I don't know if you know Publix. I'm a Publix guy. Love all the BOGOs. Well, how about a BO 10, BOGO, you know? But it kind of looked a little different, and it worked. Basically, buy one, get $10 off. So basically, there's all the different types of fluids they had, and the opportunity. Everybody knew them: coolant, transmission, power steering, injection, right? So trying to do just different things, and because of the budgets, everything's done with icons and Cartoon Network work. But yeah, so this was not a massive budget by any means. And I will say one of the things that I think we as marketers on our side of the fence, we've got to figure out better ways on much smaller budgets to do a ton of these things where they look like they are sharp. Tension point for us.
Do you do that in-house or do you outsource that?
That's all in-house. That's where over the past year, outside of some more, you always got to buy more software and server space. I think everybody just makes that up every year. The IT guy, John, one of Amy's friends, he's my IT guy. He's like, oh, we got more. I'm like, wow, we just bought more. Well, you always got to have more server space. So. Anyhow, outside of buying more server space this year, all the investment is both in people and in doing things with quicker throughput, so gadgets and movement. And everything we do has movement in it. There's nothing we're putting out that doesn't have movement in it. If you're doing any email, if you're doing any gifts, doing anything that is sitting there, you're not going to get probably as many.
Static ads are dead.
Correct, those go. Because everybody's almost kind of needing all the little wiggles and stuff. So, I won't bore you all with all these. I just think they're kind of just different ways of doing different things. Motion. We felt this was important. Saturation, I do believe, is very underrated. The more centers you have, particularly on a convenience play, a lot of people, so most of y'all have probably been, how many of y'all use EOC locally, Express Oil Change? How many different centers, how many of y'all use more than one Express Oil Change? Okay, good. And the reason why is probably using one on Saturdays near your house and one near your work, right?
Yeah.
Well, same thing with all this. And a lot of people are like, we don't want to cannibalize it. Not Josh in this group, but a lot of people are like, why do we want to do that? I'm like, well, no, you want to extend it. You want to make sure you're capturing the Saturday visit and getting the workday visit, because we can predict and influence, but we don't know when they're actually going to change their oil. I can't make them change the oil on Thursday. These are all the little display ads. These are all, you're starting to answer some of your questions.
And yeah, they were simple, so not a huge budget to accomplish that many.
Correct. Yeah. So, anything else you need from me, Bill? Questions?
So we've kind of been asking along the way.
Yep.
How did you purchase your display? I know obviously you did a lot of social.
How do I purchase our display?
Yeah,
it was through Mighty Hive. It used to be Google DB360. They just renamed it when they reset all their price structures and put all the new privacy laws in. That's who we go through. DSP. they seem to cover a lot of inventory.
I'm curious if you used, are you familiar with the new like Foursquare platforms that
Mhm.
come out, like pinpoint attribution? Have you guys tested with anything like that quite yet?
We have not, for the main reason I don't have a client that I can really get a return on to experiment that with past what we're doing. The truth about it is, there's not a lot of people in the marketplace that I'm aware of that are doing one-to-one testing on the B2C. They're actually using control groups. I'm not aware of anybody else, around doing that from a database perspective and then calling it out and showing actually revenue to that. So, I think that's an add-on that's definitely coming. I would just have to figure out a way that this sounds crazy, but with all of these things, if you start chasing all the avenues, you can lose the big picture. And the big picture is how much did we spend and how much did we make? And I think that kind of what Bill's talking about, it is hard, and you got to make the right choices of which of these technology, because there's 1,000 of them a day. I mean, y'all get called, I'm sure. It doesn't matter which side of the fence you're on. Like, oh, I got this, and every API is what? Seamless, flexible, plug-in. BS. None of that is seamless, flexible, plug-in. I mean, everything is complicated, hair pulling out, and stressful. Except for you found one, whatever it was. Yext. So Yext is the Lone Ranger of that. So I think that's the mix, and I think that I do believe, I'm like Jim Collins fan, I do believe in the hedgehog principle. What we do really, really well is we stay in that lane. Like, we don't get in the PPC business. We don't get on that stuff. We do one thing extremely well based on database, transactions, one-to-one, driving results, showing that. And we do some different type stuff, but doing that in B2C and B2B is what we want to do well, and then be a part of teams that are built that do other things that we share data with. So like, we've got friends of ours, Tim Grove, so big franchisee owner, AFC, Haley's working still, and long story short, basically you can use everything that we're doing that we get on a daily basis, nightly downloads of every patient visit across the country. That's a lot of information. We know, I can tell you by looking on a hookup where the flu is actually spreading by locale, where strep throat is blossoming. If you want to know, I don't know if anybody wants. I probably can't share that with you anyhow. But all that to say this, all that information that needs to be feeding your PPC, right? So basically, we just had a meeting, a hookup with him, where we're feeding him basically the overloads off of our data sets. Like, hey, here's your top 5 treatments, and you need to make sure that you're buying PPC, because you don't need to be, if strep's not there, like, hey, keyword strep, bid $5.99, you want to be bidding what's there. So it needs to be part of an integration, but I think trying to stay in your lane and doing that really well, there's not a lot of people that do that anymore. A lot of people are like, hey, we can be everything to everybody. I don't think that's true anymore. It's very, very, very tough. And I could be wrong, but I got to kind of bet all the assets on that strategy has worked well for us for a long time.
I think Chad makes a really important point. It's funny is I was having a conversation with essentially the number 2 guy on my new team today, and we were talking about at this point stupidly we were talking about Pandora, and now that I know, done.
Burst your bubble.
Yeah, I know, right? He's like, well, what about Pandora? Can Reflex Blue do that? I said, well, actually, we're going to use a different agency to do our media planning. And the point is, I've used Reflex Blue for this kind of work. I mean, he has his own print shop. Like, he's printing direct mail in his building, and he's executing, the web of content digitally. But he's not doing PPC. He's not doing media planning. If I were doing traditional, when I do billboards or something like that, I mean, I'd be using Intermark. So I use Reflex Blue for some things. I use Intermark for other things. Social media is another good example that I use Intermark for. B2B, I'm going to Fitzmartin, because I know that they probably know B2B better than anybody in town. And so my point is, not only are we making decisions on tech stack, but we're making decisions on agency. And there's not an agency that can do it all. There isn't an agency that's an expert in everything. And so I think as marketing leaders, what's funny is, so I've got a new CEO, and I've got a chairman and a board of directors, and so my CEO is like, I think we ought to use these guys for PR. He's like, do who? Like, he didn't ask about him, he just like, because essentially I'm risking my reputation, my career, choosing these outside partners. And I know if these guys screwed up, like, it's on me, it's not on them, it's on me. And so, back to Jim Collins, the whole point is, when I think about good to great, and I think about who's on the bus, if you remember that concept, who's on the bus, who's off the bus. One of the first things I did at AFC was figure out who's on the bus, who's off the bus, and that's what I'm doing now. Well, part of who's on the bus are the agencies you're surrounding yourself with, and I think it's all part of, it's who is literally on your team, what technologies are you choosing, which agencies are you using, and I think that it's all, it's your team. Your team are the outside partners and the people like sitting in your building, and I think they're, in a lot of ways, I don't draw a distinction, honestly. They do in terms of their paychecks, but I think it's all the same. So, you mind putting those? I'm just curious about, as long as you don't think it's a challenge.
Which one?
Nope. That right there. This is mail date. This is just direct mail, or is this all?
That's everything.
That's
Just,
everything.
yeah,
But
they
it's a
just
very
work.
short window.
Yeah, that's only like 4 weeks into it.
Yeah. So, customer control. So, what I think is really, why I wanted to go back to this is because I think it is, just look at the numbers, okay? So they targeted 43,000 past customers and had a control group of 5,000, and their liftover control was only 83 basis points. Here it was 48 basis points, which Michael Sear probably knows this as well as anybody. If you're doing direct mail for a bank, I mean, like, that's the entire campaign. Like, you got a half basis point. You're like, man, that was pretty good. Am I right? I mean, that's when we were doing checking account acquisition, like,
If you're doing DDA, you blow it out of the water.
Yeah, 83 basis points. You're like, you're doing high fives and, like, thinking about that promotion you're gonna get.
Nice dig.
Yeah, seriously. No,
It's
I'm not.
true though,
No, I'm not throwing stones. I'm just saying that's the world of banking, and this is 30 days of results in how long is the total campaign? It was to Christmas, right?
4 months.
In a 4-month campaign. So that liftover control, I mean, some of the liftover control we saw at AFC was like 20% liftover control, on customers, and probably 6% liftover control for prospects. I mean, and you're targeting people, and it costs you $2.50 for the entire campaign per household. It's pretty stunning. So, but I'm just curious, who else is doing campaigns, and what kind of liftover controls are you getting? Anybody?
I think I'm bored and asleep.
So do most clients continually share data with you throughout the 4-month campaign? Like Bill shared data regularly, or do most wait until after 4 months? We're just going to tell you.
That's a great question. Depends on the initiative. If it's a committed client, we build a pipe straight with their POS provider, so we just get nightly dumps. And that's what works best. AFC, we've got an extremely complicated and complex program that everything is done off AI. It basically looks at a new patient and does everything from does servers to go to reputation.com with NPS scores and all that. So, and we're looking at graphs and doing all kinds of information with that on a nightly basis. A lot of it really is limited to the commitment of the customer and the internal data capabilities. So there's everything from nightly to whenever they can get somebody to get us a file, and everything in between. would say that is the number one problem that I have with sales development, honestly, is finding people that have the data sources and then has a CMO that understands kind of what we're talking about, and then has a data team that actually can facilitate it. That's so we fit a really unique group of people that have enough resources for that, because that is the massive challenge with turnover and all those kind of things. And there are, most of the times, you know, DBAs and people like that that are owning a database tend to be very protective of a new vendor, and like, why does he want my data? Because truth about it is, they're the Wizard of Oz. They have the best job security ever, because nobody knows any information about it. So then we build our kind of data repositories, more times than not. I mean, my goal on any client interaction is, I want to know more about their business than they do on a daily basis, because I'm going in sharing insights with them that they don't know, because they're not building AI tools on top of their database. And that's really what's amazing to me. It's much money, as long as we've been working about all these, you know, conferences and everybody going talking about data this and big data and all that stuff. When you get down to it, the number of people that are actually monetizing their data opportunities, very, very small.
And Josh Jones is actually helping companies do that. You remember Josh, helping them monetize data. Sorry, and I was getting this set up. Chad made an important point. So we built a pipe. So he wasn't getting all of our data. He was just, you know, because HIPAA's obviously really a big deal. Reflex Blue was only getting the data, the minimum data they needed to get the job done, but they were getting a daily feed. Like every night they'd get our fresh data file from us, and that's what we're building. To the surprise of our technology team at the new company, they thought we were sending our data to Reflex Blue like on a one-time deal, and I'm like, no, we're gonna build a pipe. I'm like, oh.
Well, and the POS people, they're all selling all kinds of GUIs too. So basically, they would send us, we'll say the provider, they would send us the past 30 days transactions, and we'd have to go back and tie that together every night in 18 different files that are indexed, from patient to their treatment table. There's a seasonal table, there's an ICD lookup table. So I mean, they make it as confusing as possible to actually do these things in a marketing endeavor.
Yeah.
So that was about a 9-month process.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. And then he leaves, so. I'm glad he's getting equity so he can buy me a burger or steak sometimes. Now that he's making twice, I know he's making twice. I know who's buying all the meals from here on out.
So, interestingly, Thomas Barta is doing something very, very similar to this. I didn't realize he was working out, but he's just launched a masterclass. If you don't follow him already on LinkedIn, you should reach out to him, or Twitter. He's pretty active on Twitter. Sorry? Barta. Yeah. Tell him I said hello. Like when you reach out to him, tell him that I was saying all kinds of good things about him. I want to plant the seed months in advance. So I talked to Rita McGrath last week, and she's got a new book coming out. And so I told her that I wanted her to come here to Birmingham, and that I'd kind of, you know, get her in front of Rotary and CMOs here in town. And so she's planning on coming to town, and I'll figure out a way to make sure you guys are with us. She's just so delightful. You'll enjoy her. She moderates the CEO panel at the World Economic Forum. Like she would never tell you that, but she's crazy smart. And so plant the seed, and when I send out an email with the subject line Rita McGrath, make sure you open it, and I'll include you. Next. All right. So and then there were 2. So we've got 2 more sessions. Currently, it's on the schedule for Thursday, May 16th, here from 6 to 9. My thought was that we'd have a kind of a year-end celebration, and that if we moved it to Saturday, 3 to 5, then at 5 we'd have our 3rd hour and invite spouses, and we'd have like a little ceremony, or significant others. But I don't want to do that without checking with y'all. So thoughts, you know, listen, we're all in this together, like indefinitely into the future. So I've already been thinking about alumni reunions and how we're all going to get back together in the fall. But I thought it'd be cool to, for all the spouses that sacrifice, with kids and all that stuff, yes, no,
Yeah.
any concerns? Saturday? Raise your hands if you want to move it to Saturday. All right, about half. Raise your hands if you want to keep it to Thursday. 2, 3, 4.
Raise your hand.
All right, 4. All right. All right. Well, I'm working with Mike Whitman to see if we can move it. Seemed like the majority was looking at Saturday, but let's see how the logistics work out. Last one. Last time I was with you all, Jeff Sonnenfeld is the person I suggested you follow. Kimberly Whitler, she essentially has done what I would do if I had more free time. So she's become an expert in CMO leadership. I think she worked at Procter & Gamble, and she went back and got her PhD, and she's made marketing leadership her area of study. And she's done some really great stuff in Harvard Business Review, publishes pretty regularly, very active on Twitter, very active on LinkedIn. And if you want somebody who's really thoughtful and talks about this kind of stuff all the time, I'd suggest you follow her. We talked about recruiters and career moves and all that stuff. I have to say, one of the things that made me so happy just the other day, I know Rod was promoted, and I think there was one other person that got a promotion recently. Amy got promoted. Yeah. It's all part of our being together. I'm pretty sure that's the correlation, right? But the coolest thing was that when I went on LinkedIn and I saw who was the first to congratulate them, it was like all of you. And I just think that's really cool that you were quick to congratulate your fellow EDPers. So we're talking about careers. What's interesting is, and I know that they aren't the only two that have been promoted or gotten new jobs. It's been cool to watch in a very short period of time, relatively. We're talking about careers and recruiters and all that, and so third hour assignment is to talk about your ultimate career goal. So I'm like the luckiest guy in the world because I decided I wanted to go into marketing after I took my first marketing class, and then after I graduated my degree, I thought I want to be a CMO, and I get to actually do that. And it's like my dreams have come true, literally. So I want you guys to talk about what your dreams are, and because ultimately it's the people in this room, they're going to help you get there, and we can't help you if we don't know what it is, right? So I've been horrible the last couple of classes about Nemo Residio. I took a picture. That's how I take attendance, is I take a picture, and that way I can go back and see who's in class, because I never remember to write it down, but I can remember to take a picture. So if you wouldn't mind, for those that weren't here, if you could just, when I send out the email, if you wouldn't mind going to lunch or getting drinks with somebody that wasn't here, I'd appreciate it. What's interesting is we've had, I think, four people drop straight up. One had personal commitments, 2 moved away. I think Kayla Clay, you guys know Kayla, over at Mayo Clinic now. I won't name the other names, but anyway, but I think this, not surprisingly, we're all busy, right? And so I don't think there's anybody who's been to every single class. I'd have to go back and look. Anyway, I'm going to follow through on that next time. So, last thoughts, questions, concerns? Go. Audrey.
All the classes, have they been uploaded to the YouTube channel?
Great question. I think we only have audio on the last one. I think we're pretty close.
It's a private.
Yeah.
So we would either email the link to the playlist, or I don't know how if you want to do that.
I was going to say,
semester.
I can send out. It is a private YouTube channel, so I'll send out a link to the YouTube channel so you have it. Sorry, I forgot one more critical thing about that Saturday. I'm inviting all the past speakers, and I think putting it on a Saturday is going to enable that more than the Thursday, and that's part of my method to my madness. So going all the way back to our very first session together, every single speaker we've had is going to be invited to that third hour, regardless of which day we're going to invite them. So bear that in mind. So if you missed one, here's your chance to meet them. If you connected with them or you didn't connect with them and you want to connect with them, it'll be a really strong group together. Sorry. Back to YouTube channel. So I think we'll send out a link. Make sure you got it all. And then, I mean, you all will have perpetual access to the link and to the to the YouTube channel.
And I'll just say, if I can help any of you guys, I'm here locally. Our offices are in Hoover, right next to the Met, kind of down there. So let me know. You can come over, check us out. I can get you lunch or whatever. Be more than happy to do that.
All right. Well, my intent for third hour at the beginning was to move it around to different places, and what I've discovered is it's harder to do than you'd think, because we want to keep it close, because if we put it anywhere else, people have to go in the opposite direction. So we're going to go back to the Woolworth tonight. I know you've been there before, but it's central, it's open late, and seems like a good atmosphere. So, but if anybody has any different ideas on where you go, I've thought about like Pies and Pints down that way. I mean, there are a bunch of places we can go, but it's just easy, honestly. So, anything from anybody else? All right. Well, thanks for keeping everything